Greetings, my dear brothers and sisters. Today we are here to learn more about the Missionary Sisters of the Most Holy Redeemer, who they are and what they do. Therefore, we have today with us Father Seamus Enright, a Redemptorist priest from Ireland, and 21 years he was in Limerick, of which 14 years he was the rector of the community at Limerick. Today he presents to us about the beginning and the work of the Missionary Sisters of the Most Holy Redeemer.
The connection between the Redemptorists in Limerick and the Redemptorists in Ukraine goes back to 1932. In 1932 there was a Eucharistic Congress in Ireland, and Bishop Nikolai Chernetsky, Blessed Nikolai Chernetsky as he is now, came to Ireland for the Eucharistic Congress and spent some days with the Redemptorists in Limerick. When I was a young Redemptorist, some of the older fathers in the community remembered his visit. So the connection, of course, was broken. The Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church was suppressed, it went underground, it went through a period of terrible persecution, and then the Iron Curtain collapsed, and in 2005 the connection between the Redemptorists in Limerick and the Redemptorists in Ukraine was re-established. In that year, Father Bogdan with some students, and Father Bogdan is now the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Bishop for Germany and Scandinavia, came to Limerick to learn English. And almost every year from then on we've had young Ukrainian Redemptorists in Limerick learning English, and I've been to Ukraine on a number of occasions. I came to know the Missionary Sisters of the Holy Redeemer in Munich in the early 1980s when I was a student priest and when I was learning German there, and there were some of the Gars sisters, as we call them, working in the community there. It's a small missionary congregation that was founded in Bavaria in the 1950s and has spread now to Japan and Bolivia and Chile, and of course the most recent foundation was in Ukraine, because after the collapse of communism and when the Greek Catholic Church came out of the underground, some young women approached the Redemptorists that they wanted to become Redemptorist sisters, but they didn't want to become Redemptoristines. They wanted to be missionary sisters. So they were put in touch with the Gars sisters, and they eventually were formed and made their vows. And there's now a Greek Catholic Ukrainian province of the sisters. And I met the sisters on a number of occasions when I was in Lviv. Then, of course, in February 22, Russia invaded Ukraine, and this awful war began, and we wondered as a community in Limerick, should we do something to help the Ukrainian Redemptorists in this awful time? And the first thing we thought about was fundraising. So we did a fundraising initiative in Limerick, in the Redemptorists, and we raised about €700,000 to help the Ukrainian Redemptorists, help the Ukrainian people who were the victims of this terrible war. Now at the time, we didn't expect displaced Ukrainians to arrive in Limerick, but they began coming towards the end of 22 and the beginning of 23, and we wondered, might there be something we could do to respond to their needs? Because one of the things Redemptorists do, of course, when we're at our best, is respond to the needs of the people, especially the most abandoned people. And in the Redemptorist Church in Limerick, we have Mass for the Brazilian community, we have a Mass for the Portuguese. In Portuguese for the Brazilian community, we also have a Mass for the Filipino community. So we thought we should do something to help the Ukrainians. But of course there were language difficulties, and also of course they were either Greek Catholics or Orthodox if they had any religion at all. Then I heard from Father Dominic O'Toole in Vienna, Redemptorist in Vienna, that some of the sisters were leaving Ukraine and they were going to work with the displaced Ukrainian people, with the migrants in Europe, in Germany the intention was, I think. And I wondered about some of them coming to Limerick. Now I've been praying through the intercession of Nicholas Chernetsky for guidance as to what we might do to help these really abandoned people. So I thought maybe some of the sisters would come to Limerick. So I contacted Sister Oksana, who was on the General Council of the Sisters in Germany and whom I'd known since 2007 when there was a Redemptorist Youth Congress in Limerick. And we talked about it, we emailed each other and texted each other about it, and within about 48 hours the decision was made and two of the sisters were on their way to Limerick, Sister Justina and Sister Antonia. So they arrived in Limerick at the end of March in 2022. Not long after the war began, really. And they did invaluable work. They helped the people to settle, they visited them, they talked to them, they listened to their stories. They began a prayer service in our church because we didn't have a Greek Catholic priest at the time. And they began praying with the people, and during our annual novena in honour of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, they conducted some novena sessions in Ukrainian as well. Now later on some Ukrainian Redemptorist priests began to come as well, and now we're blessed of course that Father Roman Lahish has joined the Redemptorist community in Limerick, and there's a permanent presence of a priest there now. So the sisters really were wonderfully helpful. And I'll always remember the first evening, Justina and Antonia and Brother Dermot from the community and myself went to St. Lelia's Community Centre in Limerick. A group of refugees were arriving from Ukraine. Now these people had come by land, they'd travelled all across Ukraine, they came from near the Russian border, they travelled all across Ukraine, they travelled all across Europe, and then they travelled all across Ireland, and they arrived in Limerick by bus really. And I never saw such a worn out, tired group of people in my life. It was absolutely heartbreaking, and it was wonderful having the sisters because they of course spoke Ukrainian, and they were really able to help this group of people settle in, and they became very close to this group of people, and this group of people became our friends and continue to be our friends today. Then school holidays came of course, and we wondered what might the children do when they weren't in school. So the sisters, of course, had experience of summer camps in Ukraine. So we decided to have a summer camp for Ukrainian children in Mount St. Alphonsus. And Sister Antonia and Sister Justina organised that with a group of Ukrainian volunteers. And it went very well. It was very difficult. It was hard going at times. The Redemptorist Perpetual Help Fund, which is a charity in Limerick for the relief of poverty in Limerick, provided the funding for it, and it had also provided some funding to help Ukrainians settle in Limerick, because we felt all along that the money we'd raised for Ukraine should only be spent in Ukraine. So the sisters stayed for the summer, and by then not as many people were coming. People had begun to settle down and find their way, and the needs weren't as acute as they were. So Antonia and Justina went back to Ukraine. But we remained in contact, and I remained in regular contact with Sister Alfonsa, who became the provincial and whom I'd known from a visit to Ukraine many years before. And this last summer, we thought it would be a good idea for the sisters to come back and organise another summer camp, and also help a little bit with the praying, with the novena, and we were having priests now at this stage. Father Andrew and Father Mikola had come in turns from Ukraine, so they came to run another summer school. The first time in 22, we just did the summer school for a week, and in 23 we decided to do it for 2 weeks. And again, it was hard work, it was tough going. It was funded by the Redemptorist Perpetual Help Fund, and the sisters did wonderful work. So at the end of that, they went back to Ukraine, because the intention was that they would only come to help with the summer camp for Ukrainian children. The Redemptorist Missionary Sisters in Ukraine are celebrating the Silver Jubilee of their foundation this year. There are 27 members of the province, and of course the Superior General of the sisters, Sister Theodora, is a Ukrainian. The icon of Blessed Nicholas Chernetsky is displayed and venerated in the Redemptorist Church in Mount St. Alphonsus in Limerick. It's a gift from the Redemptorists in Ukraine to the Redemptorists in Limerick, celebrating the relationship between the two groups. Blessed Nicholas came to Limerick in 1932, and if you look closely at the icon, you'll see in one corner the image of the church, Mount St. Alphonsus, and in the opposite corner you'll see a monstrance with the Blessed Sacrament in it, Greek style rather than Roman style, and this of course commemorates the fact that Bishop Czernetsky came to Limerick to Ireland in 1932 for the Eucharistic Congress.
Збагатилася, ми раді, що ви в нас є, ви для нас є дарунком Божим. Дякуємо мамі, дякуємо другій мамі, яка ще не була, але вона з нами буде. До вічних обітів ще є довга дорога. Вона ще прийде. І дякуємо дівчатам з Кам'янця-Подільського, що так далеко їхали, і з різних куточків вам, брати, дякуємо. І всі сестри наші. І також, знаєте, в цій нашій молитві помолімося за нашу Україну, за нашу перемогу, за всіх наших воїнів, які є на передовій. В особливий спосіб згадаємо всіх полонених, наших отців, редемтористів полонених, і помолимося також за їхнє звільнення. Дякуємо Богові, просимо Бога перемоги. Під Твою милість
прибігаємо, Богородице Діво, молитвами нашими в скорботах не погорди, але від бід визволи нас, єдина чиста і благословенна.
Пресвятая Богородице,
спаси нас.
Святий Отче наш Альфонсе,
моли Бога за нас грішних.
Слава